Joining me to discuss BTC price and other Bitcoin news is our week in review panel, CoinDesk Managing Editor of Technology, Chris D. Harkin in Toronto, Managing Editor of Markets, Brad Count in Austin, and Director of Data and Indexes, Galen Moore in Boston. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks, Christine.
Thanks, Christine.
Good to see you all. All right. So we're having this market drop, Brad. Is this a correction, or is it just a temporary dip?
I mean, it's pretty hard not to call it a correction. It's been a pretty fierce sell-off. We were at 65,000, the all-time high in the past couple of weeks, and now we're down around 50,000. So, I mean, I remember last week you asked me about Mike Novogratz's prediction that we were about to have a correction, and I said that was not what our reporting was showing, but we did end up having a big sell-off just a couple days after that. So welcome to the Bitcoin market.
Yeah, we did see some alts creeping up, DeFi creeping up, even though the crypto markets, broadly speaking, today are down. What can you say about Bitcoin dominance?
Well, we've been in what people call the alt season for the past few weeks, or maybe the past month or two, where Bitcoin has kind of had a big run earlier in the year, and then it's kind of stalled out in that $50,000 to $60,000 zone for a few weeks, while these altcoins have been, going multiples. When some of them are up 20-fold. We just wrote about one today, Chiliz, the fan token platform. Bitcoin is kind of been pretty stable, which is a bit of a miracle, from a bigger perspective. It's the fact that it's holding at about $1 trillion market cap after the big run over the past 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of, last week, Christy, you said that the hash rate of Bitcoin, we would anticipate it going down this week. We did, and it was also suggested that that was a reason for the big pullback in Bitcoin that we're seeing. So what can you say about the fees this week? And again, we know that there were accidents in China to coal plants that affected power outages throughout the Xinjiang region, and that affected the hash rate. So what can you tell us about that now?
Okay, so what I can tell you is that the Bitcoin hash rate has, I think it's adjusting. Oh, geez, is it today or next Friday? It adjusts on a regular schedule every 2 weeks. Just because things get crowded on the highway of the Bitcoin blockchain doesn't mean everything's going to just adjust automatically at that time. It's every 2 weeks. So the next time it adjusts, we'll be looking forward to seeing how that happens. For now, though, what you'll find is if you're trying to actually have any Bitcoin transactions go through, the fees are really, really high. And you have to kind of think of it like a highway. There's a lot of traffic right now on the Bitcoin blockchain highway. And it's a perfect storm of a few things happening right now. First, you've got a lot of people who are trying to move their Bitcoin around. Some people are panic selling to the big dip that we're having right now that Brad was talking about. Others are buying that dip. Either way, there's a lot of action. Second, when we talked about the mining disasters in China, what we're talking about is fewer resources that go into the actual mining and bundling of transactions into blocks on the blockchain. And ironically, right before the hash rate dropped, it had been at an all-time high, which meant the blocks were getting produced really quickly, so the difficulty level adjusted up at that time to compensate. And then the hash rate dropped, and miners were still stuck with the old super high difficulty level. So like imagine you're pulling a great big load up a hill with 3 of your buddies, and one of them, a quarter of your buddies, takes off on you. You've got the same load, but you got less help doing it. So things kind of slowed down. And if you want to get your transactions through right away, you're gonna have to pay a premium. If you don't wanna do that, on the other hand, if you don't wanna get them through right away and you're willing to sort of sit back in the queue or even wait till it all blows over, wait till the next adjustment happens, you can do that too. There's a great article that Alyssa Hertig has written on CoinDesk called A Guide to Saving on Bitcoin's High Transaction Fees. And she gives some great ideas. The short answer is, as I just said, be patient. The other thing you can do is try layer 2 solutions like the Lightning Network, especially if you don't need to send large amounts of Bitcoin across any of the channels. Using Lightning would be sort of like finding a zippy little side route off the main highway that's full of traffic. Again, there's some good resources on our site that can help you navigate that. But for other tips and tricks, I suggest you check out Alyssa's article.
Very cool. I like that analogy you used about, climbing that hill, and I hadn't heard that one before. In other news that we're watching today, Coinbase is listing USDT. We also heard this week that another Bitcoin ETF was approved in Canada. That's the 4th one. Galen, what can you tell us about this news and how it's impacting Bitcoin?
Yeah, the 3iQ Corp Bitcoin ETF started trading this week on the Toronto Stock Exchange. That was great to see. They're a CoinDesk Indexes client. And I think, Canada's progress on the regulatory front has been they're setting the pace in a way. Now, I don't think we can necessarily expect the SEC to follow the same pace, but certainly it does create a positive indicator. The other news, of course, was the approval of an Ether ETF, rather. I know we're not supposed to talk about Ether on the All About Bitcoin show, but Ether ETF approved for purpose investments. Another CoinDesk Indexes client, which also was they had the Bitcoin ETF back in February there. And I think there were a couple of others approved there as well. So it's very interesting to think about kind of how that might affect the way the U.S. regulators stance, and certainly, a positive sign either way.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Galen, all Bitcoin all the time. But there certainly seems to be a strategic moving of pieces on the chessboard by crypto firms and traditional corporates. Charles Schwab saying that they're waiting for regulatory clarity before deciding on crypto services. Paxos also saying, Paxos has become the 3rd federally regulated crypto bank. So what can you tell us about these movements?
I think you had Eric Voorhees earlier this week talking about, how the Bitcoin ETF sort of may not matter at this point. Enough people have access to Bitcoin through other means. That may or may not be true. I think it certainly does matter in terms of the landscape for financial institutions coming into crypto, ETF approval, or any other kind of positive sign from the securities regulator in the U.S. would be hugely positive for some of those institutions. And this morning, we learned that Charles Schwab is one of them. The entry of Schwab into crypto would have a huge impact, I think, on Bitcoin, and also might, depending on what coins are offered in addition to Bitcoin, might kind of reshape the altcoin landscape as well. Certainly the volumes that you see in, say, Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash, I think mostly come from the fact that those assets are available on a lot of platforms like Robinhood, for example. Bottom line is, I think the regulatory signals really affect the institutional participation in the market.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just also noticing a lot of movement among institutions. M&A activity. Galaxy is in talks of buying up BitGo. One of Morgan Stanley's new Bitcoin-only private funds has raised almost $30 million. RIT Capital Partners, formerly known as the Rothschild Investment Trust, has acquired interest in the crypto exchange Kraken. So a lot of activity going on.